Hey guys, I'm here today to tell you my top favorite 20 albums of the year. 2020 was a magnificent year, a lot to choose from, so what I did was I went back into my top 5 albums of the month and I picked the cream of the crop, the best of the best. And I'm going to start off my list at number 20 with Blood Red Hourglass, Your Highness. An album that connects the past with the future, introduces a lot of new elements, and because of that allows this record to really grow on the listener as you see the growth within the band. Best sounding album that they've ever released, and when you add those new elements it really becomes a strong album all around, and because of that it's on my list at number 20. At number 19 we have Space Chaser, Give Us Life, my favorite thrash metal album of the year. I know what you're thinking, and you're thinking Exodus, and that's fine, but to me this was a better sounding record. More engaging, more entertaining, more electrifying from the beginning all the way to the end. They created an album that has an old school feel but doesn't sound dated. Strong record by Space Chaser. At number 18 we have Weatherfall with The Curse of Autumn, a band that has no ceiling. These guys keep getting better and better with every album. They take all the great things that they've done in the past and they build upon it, and this album is that last step that they've taken as far as their music is concerned. Great sounding album, incredible vocals, really well designed, an album that just keeps on giving with every time that you're listening to it. At number 17 we have a Pillhorse Named Death with Infernum in Terra, an album that it's perhaps their best sounding album ever, the most complete album that they've ever released. When you look at compositions, when you look at vocals, when you look at sound, when you look at overall construction of the album itself. I love the fact that it's not controlled by one single genre, by one single influence. When you listen to this record, you see a lot of different influences and genres coming in. It obviously has that doom backdrop to it, but it's a lot more than just a doom record. I love this album, I love the sound that it has, and how deep into that rabbit hole of darkness that it takes you. Next we have at number 16 Clanny with Ilya. This is one of their heaviest albums, and perhaps because of that it really jumped out at me, because all the other elements we've gotten to expect from this band. So the album is folky, it's bouncy, it has nice melody, great vocals, great energy, but it's a lot heavier than its predecessors as far as the guitars and drums are concerned, and because of that it really jumps out and it makes itself feel more noticeable. At number 15 we have Moonspell with Hermitage. This is a band that keeps getting better with age. They're like a fine wine, they're like a Porto. The older they get, the better the records, and this one is phenomenal. An album that always has something new to give every time you listen to it. It doesn't matter if it's your 10th, 20th, 100th time. This album never feels old, it always feels fresh with every time you go through it. Phenomenal band, phenomenal record, really complete across all the different parameters. At number 14 we have Ginger with Wallflowers, a band that doesn't have a defined genre behind it, and they're always defining what that genre is going to be with every new album. The genre is ginger, and Ginger is a band that just doesn't have any boundaries around them. Wallflowers just resets all the expectations from previous albums and showcases a new record with new elements, with growth, with great music, great musicians, really constructing an album that's strong and balanced throughout its existence. At number 13 we have At the Gates with Nightmare of Being. The prog side of this record is what sold me on this album. I was expecting this to be a heavy hitting record, to be that traditional At the Gates sound, but introducing more prog elements or allowing them to have more of a showcase really makes this album stand out, really makes this album impactful, and it makes this album a lot more vibrant. It has a lot more to give. It's just not linear in its processes. It's not just what you see is what you get. You need to dive a lot deeper into it in order for you to really get everything that this album holds. At number 12 we have Evergray with Escape of the Phoenix. Evergray is a phenomenal band. They're a band that is very consistent with every single record that they release. So there's no such thing as a bad record across their discography. This one is no different. I felt like the melodies on this album were outstanding. The vocals were phenomenal, very consistent, grounding the album, guiding the experience of the listener, and it's an album that has a sense of closure to it. So because of all of these elements coming together, the overall essence, the overall atmosphere that it creates is one that stays with the listener even after you stop listening to the record itself. At number 11 we have Swallow the Sun with Moonflowers, one of my favorite albums by Swallow the Sun. This album feels like a journey that doesn't end. It kind of catches perhaps or encapsulates a part or a portion of a journey. Not necessarily the beginning and definitely not the end. You're somewhere within the middle. You're walking down this hallway There's a door at the end of that hallway, but you're not quite there, and I don't feel like you get there even when you reach the end of the album. So it's an open-ended record, and because of that, really makes you lose yourself within yourself and within the experience of listening to this record. I love the vocals, I love the dynamics, I love the fact that perhaps it has a lot more clean vocals than harsh vocals. It allowed itself to be more melancholic and more darker than I was expecting coming in. Swallow the Sun, another magnificent band with another magnificent record. At number 10 we have Rivers of Nile, The Work. Now this is a head scratcher. I think 20 years from now I'm still not going to get exactly what the concept or the idea behind this album was, but it doesn't matter because the album sounds phenomenal. It's a phenomenal record. It's just one of those albums that doesn't really give you everything that it has to offer, and if it does, it's going to give different listener a different experience. So it really depends on who you are and where you're coming from in terms of what you're going to get out of this album. But the quality of the music, the quality of the construction, outstanding throughout. At number 9 we have Imminence with Heaven in Hiding. One of the strongest metalcore albums of the year. Phenomenal record. Talk about a journey. This record is definitely a journey that you want to stay on and not necessarily finish. You just want to embrace everything that this album has to offer, musically, vocally, and then atmospherically. It's just a very layered record with a lot of different things for you to break down in order for you to really understand exactly where this album is coming from. It has a dark backdrop to it, a dark backdrop that really impacts everything that's happening within it. At number 8 we have Atlas with Uko, their second album, their best album. They finally found themselves and they found the sound within themselves with this album. Now they can build upon it and they can go different places. But this record has a very emotional backdrop, drives the experience, drives the sound, drives the lyrics, and drives everything that's created within this record. Not just a metalcore album, but an album that brings in folk influences, that brings in melancholic influences, that brings in doom influences, and allows itself to be very dynamic in its sound and in its approach. At number 7 we have 1914, Where Fear and Weapons Meet. These guys are outstanding. Some bands talk about war. These guys show you the reality of that war. It's not pretty, it's ugly, and it's well represented not just in the lyrical content, but in the sound. And as far as the lyrical content is concerned, they do incredible research behind each and every single song. So you're getting a piece of history being narrated to you with every single track. And then the sound that they create is the soundscape to that picture, to that history that they're telling you. This album is phenomenal. At number 6 we have Ice Nine Kills, The Silver Scream 2. I didn't think the sequel was going to be as good or better than the original, and it was better. This album surpasses my expectations, way better than its predecessor. It had more drive, it was heavier, it was bigger, it was bloodier, the body count was a lot bigger. I just love everything about this record. I love the movies that they pick for the concept behind each and every single song. I love the lyrical content, I love the heaviness that it has, I love the drive that it puts forward, and I love the melodic drive that it has within the heaviness of sound. Magnificent album. Like I said before, I didn't think that they could surpass The Silver Scream, but they did with this sequel. At number 5 we have Epica with Omega. I think the name of the band says it all. This album is epic. It's massive. It's a massive record, but a fun record to listen to. Sometimes you have these big sounding albums and you kind of lose yourself in it and it becomes really hard to digest or navigate through. This album is big, is enormous, but at the same time it's so easy to understand, it's so easy to gravitate and navigate through it, and that really has a positive impact in the playability of the album and the experience that it gives to the listener. At number 4 we have Hypocrisy with Worship. What a banger of a record. This album is heavy, it's melodic, it just drives the message home. I love everything about this album. Really well constructed, really compact, but still very diverse from track to track. You don't get necessarily two songs that feel or sound the same within this album, but at the same time the whole record really works from the strength of the individual songs to the strength of the collective. At number 3 we have Cradle of Filth with Existence is Futile. I'm not a huge fan of Cradle of Filth. This album sold me on the band. I love the cinematic approach that they took with this record. The symphonic elements that they have on this album really gives this record a huge footprint This album is massive. It has a big sound, has a very big cinematic drive, and that becomes really the calling card of the entire record. The vocals are phenomenal on this album. I really enjoy them. I felt like they matched the intensity of the lyrics and then the sound that was created around them, so everything was at the right place at the right time. And it's not an album that overburdens the listener. It's not overly layered. It's really easy to digest, really easy to understand, really easy to grasp, and it has a lot of hooky, catchy melodic songs that become earworms the first time you go through it. At number 2, we have Halloween with their self-titled Halloween. This is the band's perhaps greatest record to date because it's a greatest hits without being a greatest hits. They took everything that they've done up until this point and they picked the best pieces of every single record and they brought it into this album. So they created, like I said, a greatest hits without being a greatest hit. So if you do an album like this and you're able to achieve that goal, how can this not be their best album to date? I just love this album. It's so much fun to listen to, and you can see and hear the history of the band being played out from the beginning all the way to the end. Finally, at number 1, we have Lord of the Lost with Judas. There's no album in 2021 that has the same impact that Judas had on me. This was a double album. It was magnificent. It was the different sides of Judas, the dark and the light. I just love the concept behind this record. Everything about this album was worked to a T. No stone was left unturned. No T was left uncrossed. No I was left undotted. Everything about this album is about the detail, and if you pay attention to the detail, you're going to really grasp everything that this record has to offer, and there's a lot that it has to offer. I love this album. It's one of those records that it's going to stay with me forever. The music, the lyrics, the way everything comes across, the overall concept is not something that I'm going to see anytime soon, and it's something that, like I said, had a very long-lasting impact on me personally, and because of that, it's going to stay very close to me, very close to my heart for a very long time, forever. Alright guys, this is my list, my top 20 albums of 2021. Let me know your thoughts. What made your list? Use the comment section below. I'll definitely be checking those out and getting back to you. Take care, guys.